welcome to Coming Soon Movie News with Niklsun. I'm your host, and on this show, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, we'll be going over all of the day's movie news, as well as going over what it means for the production in general, such as casting decisions, trailer announcements, director announcements, things like that. So, without any further ado, let's get started with today's Hot Topics. Alright guys, before I get into the first topic today, I wanted to talk about a couple of things involving the show. First off, ever since last week, I have not been able to do an episode because I right now have a pinched nerve in my shoulder. It is actually causing the entire shoulder to be in basically extreme pain. So I'm on some pretty heavy painkillers right now, so I might not be as ecstatic as I normally am. But what this has caused is also the times where I don't have my actual work that I have to go to, I'm basically dealing with this. So I haven't been able to have a show in the past week. So I do apologize about that. So today I'm actually going to be unveiling at least 2 episodes. I'm going to try to record 3 of them, and hopefully I'll have at least 2 of them available by later on today. So this one and then the next one as well. But the other thing I want to talk about is because my work schedule has become so much more hectic in the last several weeks, I'm actually looking at changing up the schedule as to how I have the show. So the way that I can see myself being able to do it, and I'm opening this up to you guys because I want to know if this is something you guys want. Because if not, then I will try as hard as I can to stick to the same regimen, or maybe even just reduce it down to 2 episodes a week. Or something like that, because I only have certain times of the day that I can actually record episodes, and so if I don't have the time to do it in those times, I just can't do it that day. So my idea has been, instead of me doing a block episode every other day where I have 3 or 4 stories that I talk about, I would instead upload the individual stories by themselves at different points throughout the first 3 or 4 days of the week. And then on Friday, every Friday, I would have at least 1, if not 2, half-an-hour-ish episodes, you know, like 20 minutes, 30 minutes, maybe even longer, depending on... I try not to go longer than a half an hour. Now, that doesn't mean that I try to cut down on how long that I talk about stuff. If I have 4 topics to talk about, and the first 2 take up, 12 minutes apiece, well, at that point, I will then upload 2 episodes. I'll never shorten the amount of time that I'm going to talk about an episode or about a topic just because the length of the episode is going to get too long. I'll just split it into 2 parts. But I want to know if you guys think that that's going to be a better system, if that's a system you would rather like to see. Instead of it being, like a 25, 35-minute episode, they would each be, between 6 and 10 minutes long, just talking about the one topic. And then perhaps later on that day or the next day, there would be another topic that comes out. So let me know what you guys think about this structure in the comments below, or you can even put a message on my Facebook page on the post that I talked about this, where I said I'm going to be dealing with some scheduling changes. So let me know in the comment section there, or even just write a comment on the Facebook page, facebook.com/movie news with Niklsun. And I just would really love your guys' feedback. I want to know what type of system you guys would like to see, because this is the one thing that I came up with that to me would work within the time frame that I have to do this. So let me know what you guys think, and if not, then I'll try to figure something else out. But this is the one thing that I think could work for both the show and for giving you guys the content that you've been asking for, because I've even said before, like, shortening the episodes, and most people go, no, we want them to be longer. So it's just trying to find that balance, especially with the amount of time that I have. So let me know in the comment section below if that works for you. If not, then I'll try to figure something else out. But let's get into today's main stories. So like I said, I'm going to try to have at least 2 episodes up today, perhaps even 3, depending on how long I have, because I do have my Avenger screenings to go to tonight, and it takes me about an hour to get there. So without any further ado, let's get started with these topics. So the first topic I'm going to talk about today, they just recently announced that there is a KINGSMAN sequel in development. Now, this is not all that shocking. I mean, KINGSMAN was always envisioned as something that could be taken as a franchise. I mean, it's basically a comedic or a more lighthearted yet more violent tone of James Bond, which I loved. I mean, if you haven't seen KINGSMAN, you got to go out and watch it. It's such an entertaining, fun, pulpy, adrenaline-filled romp. Like, it's got so many elements in it that just make it awesome. And yeah, like I mean, it just worked for me. I mean, Matthew Vaughn's style in the movie just worked perfectly with Mark Miller's artwork and his characters and the storylines that he created, and so it just worked beautifully. And them continuing on and going further into this franchise, I think, is great, especially because Matthew Vaughn has stated that he would love to explore the American faction of Kingsman, which I think would be great because it would be like the Ethan Hunt of James Bond. You know, he's more a guy, he's not necessarily as suave, he's more just about kicking ass and taking names, and I think that would be great, and them kind of poking fun at these, you know, these cowboys and stuff. I know that that's been done a lot in movies, but with Mark Millar's sensibilities and sense of humor, and with Matthew Vaughn's style and his capability of getting these performances out of the actors, I think that would work wonders. I think that would be a great idea. Now, there is no release date yet. There's no shooting schedule or anything of that sort. This is now just, well, we're now working on it. We haven't greenlit the project. I don't believe it's been officially greenlit yet, but it is in development. They are actively working on storylines and scripts, and I mean, I'm pretty sure that almost every cast member in the movie had a clause that stated that they had to come back for at least one more, if not two more films. So, I mean, we still don't know that. The one thing they need to maintain is the hyper ultra violence. I mean, movies like this and John Wick, and there are a couple of other movies out there as well, but they really excel at the fact that while, yes, they are extremely violent movies, they're done in a way where not only do you know that that is not real and that can't happen in the real world, but you laugh at it. You know, it's one of those things where it's borderline uncomfortable because you're laughing. It's the only response you have to something like that. And so I hope that they continue it. I want to see the movie mainly focus on the relationship between Eggsy and Merlin. I think both of those two characters, Mark Strong especially, like that's just really, really... He had a lot of fun with that role, and you could tell. And it was a really nice juxtaposition from his role in Imitation Game, which I thought was great. He was almost like a James Bond spy. I think he worked for MI6 in that movie too. So, you know, it'd be really cool to see it. I mean, okay, because I don't have both arms right now, I'm going to do a spoiler here for Kingsman. If you have not seen it, then just mute the video until you see me going like this, okay? So I'm going to talk about that spoiler now. You've been warned. So in Kingsman, the one thing that I actually knew about Kingsman about a year or so, maybe even a year and a half before the movie came out, was the demise of Colin Firth's character. There were some leaked set photos that came out that showed him getting shot in the head. And so that's why whenever I saw the trailers for it, I was really hoping they weren't going to focus the trailers on Colin Firth's character, only because I knew that he was going to die. And it looked like he died about halfway to 2/3 of the way through it. It didn't look like he died during an action scene. Well, it looks as though Vaughn said he's going to try to bring him back. You know, there's always a way that we can figure out to bring somebody back. So I think they're going to entertain the option of bringing him back, which I think would work out really well. Now, depending on how they do it, I would rather him be more like a hologram. I think that could work really well. You know, kind of the same way that they did in Man of Steel with Jor-El, and how he was basically a hologram, but he was a conscience. Maybe not go that far with his character Galahad, but yeah, I mean, I think that would really work. I would love to see Colin Firth back in this, because that church scene, man, I mean, that was just absolutely incredible, and it was all done as one shot. Now, I can't remember how many times they said they had to do it to get to that point, but when I was watching it, it looked like there were very noticeable, well, I mean, if you were looking for it, very noticeable cut scenes, like very noticeable cut spots where they did switch to another camera, although they've apparently come out and stated it was all done in one shot, which is incredible, because that is just one hell of a sequence to choreograph. Okay, so done the spoiler. You guys can come on back now. But yeah, I mean, yeah, Kingsman sequel, absolutely. I mean, Mark Miller, as far as I know, Matthew Vaughn, as far as I know, doesn't have any other projects up right now, although everybody wants him to do a Star Wars film. And I think he would do a really cool Star Wars film, but I would rather have him do one of the anthology films. I don't want to see him do an episode, because I think he's going to be too constrained if he does an episode. I mean, with the closest thing he ever got to do a part of a franchise film was X-Men First Class, but he kind of got to reset the reins on that. I mean, he got to inject it with a lot of style, because they were rebooting it. They were setting it in a different time frame. I mean, he had a lot of panache with that movie. So seeing him deal with a Kingsman sequel, I think is great, and especially considering the fact the movie made north of $400 million, I think speaks a lot to the reason why we're getting a sequel. So I'm on board with it. I just hope we get a lot of the returning characters back, because I want to see a continuation of this world, and I can't wait to see what they do with bringing in an American faction of this. I think there's a lot of possibilities with this, and to me it works well. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Are you happy about this? Did you not really care about Kingsman? Or do you think that this is just another way for them to try to capitalize on a name brand? I mean, let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. And if we do get more information about this topic, then I will definitely update you guys on here. Yet again, I have another reason to hate Tom Rothman. All right, so for some strange reason, Sony Pictures thought that it was a great idea to appoint Tom Rothman as their head of the filmmaking division. And I still have no idea why they did that. He borderline destroyed the X-Men franchise with X-Men 3 and X-Men Origins Wolverine. And, I mean, Sony is a company right now that is in such hard times. I mean, why they would try to appoint a guy like this is beyond me. But one of the first things that he has done as being appointed the head of Sony, he has come out, he said something last week, and I completely blocked it out, it was so stupid. But he has now said they are moving full steam ahead on not only the Men in Black Jump Street crossover film, they are also developing a full female-led spin-off. Now, after all the backlash that the Ghostbusters remake of sorts got because it was an all-female cast, the reason that I was against that had nothing to do with the fact that it was just the females that they got, the women that they got. It was the fact that Paul Feig, the guy who's spearheading the movie, has stated in interviews that he will only write female characters. He will only do movies with female lead characters or female characters. Now, that to me means when Sony approached him, he had no intention whatsoever of seeing anybody but them being all women. And the problem I have with that is that that is still being gender specific. I don't care if they're all men. I don't care if they're all women. If you go in with the intention of getting the best people possible, and it turns out that the best people you got were all women, awesome. Awesome. Great job, because you got the best people possible. If it turns out that you go out and you get all men, awesome, because you got the best people for it. I mean, like, I look at I'm gonna call out movie fights for a second, because there's one chick that they have on there. They've had a couple on there, like Comic Book Girl 19, awesome. You know, very well thought out arguments, very concise points. And then they even had Sasha Perlmutter on there. Great points, you know, very intelligent, very well thought out points. And then you get, I can't even remember her name, but she was on, not this past one, but the one before that, the one where they were talking about the Batman v Superman trailer, and the Star Wars, I believe it was the new Star Wars trailer. And she gave one of the dumbest points over and over and over again on all of her fights. And you know what? She ended up winning a few of them. And I have no idea how that happened. The only thing I do know is the only reason that she was on a show like that is because they need diversity. They need a different people on there, whether they be, you know, females, whether they be other ethnicities. And I'm perfectly fine with that. But vet the people first. Find out if they actually know what the hell they're talking about. Like, what was one of the things she said? She was talking about, now I'm going to go off on a little bit of a tangent here, but you're going to get my understanding for this. Because in her argument, she went through and talked about how when it came to the teaser trailer, now she has every right to not like the Batman v Superman teaser trailer. But the reasons that she gave were completely stupid because she completely made her argument irrelevant with her follow-up comment. So she stated that in her eyes, a trailer needs to have four things. It needs to have character development. It needs to have new information about the plot. It needs to make you feel more excited about the movie beforehand after you've seen the trailer, and it needs to introduce new information to the movie. So those four things. She talked about how there was nothing new in the trailer. We already knew about the Batmobile. We already knew they were going to fight. We knew he was going to have the armored suit. We knew that the world was going to be against Superman and all this stuff. Granted, absolutely, we did know that. But We didn't know how it was all going to come together. We didn't know for sure if any of that stuff was going to come together. But even more importantly than that, her follow-up comment was the very first Star Wars teaser trailer and how amazing that was and why this couldn't have been like that. Okay, let's break that one down. While I still loved the Star Wars teaser trailer, the first one we got back in November or December, but we didn't get anything out of that trailer we didn't already know. Except for the crossguard. One thing, in this trailer for Batman v Superman, we did find out one new thing about it. What was that one new thing? Batman's voice in his suit is augmented. It's a machine that actually changes his voice. So that was one thing that we knew. Going back to the Star Wars teaser, we knew the Millennium Falcon was going to be in it. We knew they were relying mostly on practical effects. We knew that the movie was going to focus more on the new cast than the old cast. The only thing we didn't know was that the new villain in the movie had a cross-guard lightsaber. There was one new thing. But outside of that, we didn't know. We didn't find out anything new that we didn't already know. And her point she made, she won that fight. Like, that to me is absolutely ridiculous. And the only reason that she was on there was because they needed diversity. They were getting too many complaints that they had too many men on the council, or on the council, too many men on the panel, and they needed to have a female. So they brought this chick in. And you know what? If they had brought back in Sasha Perlmutter, or they had brought back in Comic Book Girl 19, or even somebody else, even get, you know, like Miri Jedikin. You get, you know, any of the hundreds of very intelligent females out there, or other people of different ethnicities, because let's face it, Screen Junkies is pretty white. But don't get them just because you need them. Actually get them because they're worthy of being on your show. The fact that they know the information, not that they're just going to spout this horse shit. I mean, like, it was absolute garbage, and the only reason it was garbage was because she refuted her own argument in like 10 seconds, and she still won. Like, oh, it pissed me off. I was actually yelling at the screen when I saw that. And I'm not usually the type of person to do that. But it made me so friggin' mad that she kept winning. Her and Roger Barr. Why the hell Roger Barr is on that show? He is a moron. He's an absolute moron. And to me, he is on there to be the wild card. He is on there to be the Bob Finstock of the Screen Junkies movie show. Because they feel like they need it. But no, I go to watch that show because I want to see intellectual conversations and fights about these things while peppering them full of jokes. Absolutely. Be funny. Be comedic through the whole thing. Awesome. Like, look at every time that Dan Murrell gets up there, or Spencer Gilbert. Those guys both have such intellectual conversations and points to make, but yet they pepper it with jokes the whole time. Then you get Roger Barr coming in there being a goddamn moron and just talking about how I'm not excited about Jurassic World. I want to see Cadillacs and dinosaurs because that is more entertaining. What? What? Does he not understand the movie business? Does he not understand that the sole purpose of creating something like that is because of brand new IP? Or not just because of brand new IP, but because they need to make whatever they invest in it, they need to make that back plus however much percent. And coming up with a story like Cadillacs and dinosaurs about, if I even remember it correctly, it was about these Cadillacs that actually turn into dinosaurs. Like, it's so stupid. How the hell could you make a movie about that? And why would you be interested in that? Now, if you watch that in a cartoon or something like that, all for it. Absolutely. It sounds like it's designed for kids anyway. But making that into a multi-million-dollar feature-length film? No. No. And just, oh, it just pisses me off that people like that get the opportunities that they do because they don't know jack shit. And it pisses me off. Almost as much as Tom Rothman does because he still gets a job. Like, I don't get this. And them coming out and saying, we're going to have a female-led Jump Street. Great. If it happens to be that the cast they got, like what happened with the Ghostbusters movie, they ended up getting one of the best casts that they could get. And I don't know of any other male actors who I would have rather seen in their places. Because you think genderless. You just think genderless. You go and you audition the best people possible. If it turns out to be a woman who nabs the role, awesome. Turns out to be a man that nabs the role, awesome. Whoever is the best choice should get it. And then doing a female-led Jump Street movie, to me, just smells of, all these other films are doing it, we got to do it now, we're hopping on the bandwagon, because I think Transformers just did it. They're unveiling a whole new female Transformers line. Avengers are doing it in the comics. They're unveiling a whole female line. It's like, Enough's enough. This is now turning into a gimmick. This has become a full-fledged gimmick. Why can't they just be seen as equal? Why can't you have as many men as women, or more women as men, or more men as women? Whoever happens to be the better characters, the better, more well-rounded characters, the better written ones. I'm getting so sick and tired of seeing this. Like, it's affecting my voice. You can hear it going. I mean, it's just absolutely ridiculously stupid. Like, I'm not even really on board with the Men in Black one. After thinking about it for so long, I originally thought, you know what, this might actually be kind of cool. Excuse me. The one aspect about it that I think would actually work is the fact that I said, when I did my review of 22 Jump Street, and then the announcement came out they were going to be doing 23 Jump Street, or whatever they were going to call it, the first one was making fun of remakes. The second one was making fun of sequels and overblown sequels. I said the third one should go after franchises, and it should really attack franchises and what that means. And they're kind of taking it one little step further, and they're going after shared universes, which to me is, okay, well, that's the next logical step. But then going back on the fact that Lord and Miller are at most going to be producing this movie. They're not going to be writing it. They're not going to be directing it. If anything, they might write the treatment for it, and that's it. Which, if they're not going to write the actual humor and the dialogue in the movie, I mean, I don't know how much I'm going to really be excited about that, because they're one of the driving forces for why these other properties have worked so well, because they've taken such stupid ideas and made them into gold. I mean, they've made them work so well. So having a Men in Black Jump Street crossover, while I think it depends on who they get involved with it, it might be cool. I mean, seeing them go after aliens, I think is really going to be funny. Don't get me wrong about that. Now, it's all going to depend, though. Is it going to be a Jump Street movie featuring Men in Black, or is this going to be a Men in Black sequel featuring the Jump Street characters? That's what they really need to narrow down. I think the proper tone that they should go with is a 21 Jump Street sequel that features the Men in Black characters. That's the way I think they should go. But again, it's all going to depend on whether or not they're able to get Lord and Miller back to be a part of these films. Those guys are super busy. I mean, they just got appointed to write the Flash movie and to develop the Flash movie. Now, they're still not signed on to direct that. But, and they're also going to be doing the animated Spider-Man movie with Sony. So, I mean, these guys are really busy. And on top of that, they got the Lego franchise. I mean, these guys are insanely busy. I don't see them being a part of this, which is really frustrating. But yeah, no, don't do a female-led Jump Street movie, because it's just going to scream of a gimmick. The only way that I could see it working is if you focus it on Dakota Johnson's character and the other chick, I can't remember her name, from 21 Jump Street, and have them be the focus of it, and then have the other guys kind of pop in, or have other characters pop in. But it's like doing the Expendables. You know, they're doing the all-female version of the Expendables. No, just have them be a part of the Expendables. Like, have them be a major part of it. But don't do a sole movie just to have all female characters. No. Like, that, to me, personally, is going backwards. That is going backwards. Because now we're not saying that they're equal. We're saying, well, no, they can't have them in this movie. They got to have their own. They can't be in this movie. And that's not saying that they're equal. And that's my biggest problem. To me, that's the biggest slap in the face. So, there's no release date schedules or shooting schedules or anything like that for these movies. Whew, sorry about that rant, guys. I got really worked up with that. But yeah, I mean, they're doing an all Ghostbusters female movie. Paul Feig. Ugh. So if anybody can crack this formula, it's going to be Lord and Miller. But I don't think they're going to be that involved with this franchise anymore. Tom Rothman is notorious for not giving two craps about what the filmmaker's intentions are. He looks at the dollar signs. And he says, oh, well, this franchise is working. Let's put out as many as we can. Let's do X-Men Origins. Oh, that guy, he talks a lot. Let's sew his mouth shut. Like, oh, he's the wrong guy to be in charge of a studio that is already fledgling. Like, but anyway, we're going to be getting more information about the Jump Street crossovers and female-led spin-offs as they do come out. And when that information does arise, I will definitely update you guys on here. But as it stands right now, I think this is a bad call. I think this is 100% a bad call. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Last week it was revealed that Sony has actually narrowed down its search for the new Spider-Man to 5 candidates. Now, the 5 candidates supposedly are Nat Wolff, Tom Holland, Timothy Chalamet, Liam James, and Aja Butterfield. Now, since that report has come out, Latino Review is reporting that Aja Butterfield is actually the front runner for the role. Now, when the news first came out, I looked at it and I said, well, I don't like any of these actors really. I mean, well, sorry, I do like the actors. I don't like them for Peter Parker. But out of all of them, Aja Butterfield is the one that to me stands out the most. It was him or Timothée Chalamet, because Timothée Chalamet really kind of, in the small scenes that he had in Interstellar, he to me showed that he could play that kind of troubled teen, the one dealing with, because we know in the new Spider-Man movie, we're not getting an origin story. We just don't know how far removed from the origin we're going to get. So if he is still dealing with the loss of Uncle Ben and dealing with being kind of an outsider in school, because that's what they're really going to play up. They're going to play up how much of an outsider this kid is. Because outside of the first Sam Raimi Spider-Man movie, which had Peter Parker in high school in the 60s, we haven't really seen him in high school interacting with other students because, excuse me, because, I mean, even his sequences with Flash in Amazing Spider-Man, it wasn't really, like, that wasn't really accurate. It was almost like two friends kind of horsing around, or two people who used to be friends who are now kind of at odds with one another, but they were horsing around a little bit. Like, I didn't really get that, especially because the fact that even if somebody was a major bully in school, they would not go up to you later on and be like, hey man, you know, I'm really sorry about your family. They wouldn't do that. They just wouldn't talk to you. And so I never believed that. So I'm really excited to see what this character is actually like and how they're going to make him different in high school. We're not getting an origin story, and I'm so sick and tired of seeing people mention online saying that, oh, we're getting another origin story. It's like, no, and they even are corrected. No, they're not doing an origin story. They're like, yeah, but he's going to be in high school, so it's the same story we've already told. How do you figure? How do you know what they're writing? Like, do you have insight into the script that hasn't even been written yet? So, I mean, I would really like to know what your inside information is, because I'm getting really sick and tired of this. Kevin Feige himself has come out and said it's not an origin story. There's already a web slinger swinging around the city of New York. We just don't know it yet. In the MCU, Kevin Feige has said that. So that means that as of Avengers Age of Ultron, the timeline where that fits in with the MCU, there is a masked vigilante swinging around the streets of New York City, calling himself Spider-Man. We're just not aware of it yet. Like, how they can say that they're still going to be doing an origin story? How do you figure? How do you figure? He already exists. How can they do an origin story when he already exists? I don't get it. But out of all of them, you know, I wanted to see Timothée Chalamet. I like Aja Butterfield. He's the type of actor. I mean, even just looking at his Instagram photo, I mean, he could play it. You know, he could play the really kind of geeky, nerdy version of Peter Parker that we haven't really gotten. Because I never believed Tobey Maguire for a second. And while I liked Andrew Garfield, he was almost like the kid who wanted to be a geek because he just wanted to be a geek. It wasn't like if he wanted to, he could have gone and been friends with the popular kids, like with the jocks. He had that nature to him. You know, it never felt like he would have been an outsider because he never really gave off any sense of being an outsider. So the funny thing is, though, is that if you guys go on to Collider and you read the news about Aja Butterfield being the frontrunner, they actually state in their article that Spider-Man scenes don't start until June for Civil War. Now, I have not heard any official confirmation that he is, in fact, in Civil War. I mean, looking at all the other films, it's the only one that makes sense. It's the only one that he could actually fit into. He can't fit into Doctor Strange because it would be like the biggest sore thumb on the planet. It wouldn't make sense at all. And then Guardians is going to be completely set in space. Why would Spider-Man be in space? How would Spider-Man get to space? How would he get back to Earth? All of these questions would needlessly need to be answered. It would take away from the Guardians movie. Plus, I also think we're going to get another big Marvel character in Guardians of the Galaxy 2. It just no confirmation as to who it will be yet, but I'm fairly confident we're going to get a pretty big character. So stay tuned for that. But the other thing about it too is El Mayimbe came out from Latino Review, and he said that take this with the world's largest grain of salt, but the rumored title for Spider-Man is supposedly going to be Spider-Man: The New Avenger. To me, that is the biggest signal that they could make without actually doing an origin story. This is the biggest signal they could make to the audience saying, this is a new Spider-Man. he's going to be in with the Avengers. Like and by that I mean he's going to exist within the same universe. I don't think that, because there have been complaints out there about the fact that, well, if they're going to call it that, it's just going to be an Avengers movie. No. Was Captain America, the first one, an Avengers movie? No. It was an explanation as to how Captain America got to be the way that he was. Why can't that be about Spider-Man? Because it was called Captain America, the First Avenger. This could be Spider-Man, the New Avenger. If he's also introduced in Civil War, and we get him in his own movie later on, then that could mean that he has already been introduced to these characters. He's been introduced to the idea of the Avengers. And so the fact that he could potentially join them. And so with that wherewithal and with that know-how, going out and doing his solo film, knowing the fact that he is not only a really strong character, but he's not alone. And that if he absolutely had to, he could call upon friends for help. But this is still going to be his movie. It's the biggest way to say it's not an origin story, but it's a remake. We're redoing Spider-Man. This is a new Spider-Man for a new age in a new universe. And I think that's the proper way that they could do it. I mean, it has no ties. It's also saying there's no ties to the other films. Like, the other films made it their purpose to say we're not a part of the MCU. We have nothing to do with that because, I mean, Spider-Man is set in New York City. They never once addressed the alien invasion. So there's lots of things about this, but I have a very strong feeling that he is in Civil War. I don't think there's any denying that, especially considering the fact that there's now a short list of actors. Now, with A'ja Butterfield being the apparent frontrunner, and I would rather have Timothée Chalamet out of this list, I have a feeling that the actual, when they announce the cast, who's actually got the role, it's not going to be any of these guys, because it rarely ever is. So I don't think it's going to be any one of these unless, you know, it comes out and all of a sudden Logan Lerman is cast, and well, that came out of left field, because if anybody remembers when they were casting Captain America, it came out and said that they wanted Chris Evans. Chris Evans said, no, I'm not going to do it. So then they went out and they got a short list, and at the top of the short list was, what's his name? Jim from The Office. Oh, I can't remember his actual name. He's Jim from The Office. But he was their front runner. He was the one who they were going to go with. And then they went and said, okay, well, we want him, but let's go and offer it to Chris Evans one more time. And they went and offered it to him. And I think at this point they came back, instead of a 9-picture deal, I think it was like a 5 or a 6-picture deal. And then they said, you know, there's going to be breaks in between this one and this one and this one, so you can do all these other projects you need to do. And then he eventually signed on. So Chris Evans was not actually a part of the short list of actors that they were auditioning for Captain America. He was the one they went and just offered the role to. That could be a very similar situation with the Spider-Man film. Now, would I like to see that? Yeah, I would. I would rather see somebody who we haven't seen before. Somebody who's a very talented actor, but we've never seen them before, because I don't want to associate them with another character. You know, I mean, we go back to Amazing Spider-Man, and outside of the Social Network, hardly anybody knew who Andrew Garfield was. And even on the Social Network, you didn't connect him to the character. Like, I never saw him as Eduardo. You know, I saw him as Andrew Garfield. Like, he to me was playing a character, but I'd never seen him before, so I just knew him by that name. And seeing him come into something like Spider-Man, he embodied Spider-Man. But I would rather see a complete unknown play it. That's my personal opinion. But yeah, I have a feeling that within the next 3 weeks, we're going to have a casting announcement. So from this day, so by the 21st, by the time Tomorrowland opens up in theaters, I think we're actually going to have an announced cast for Spider-Man in terms of who's going to play him. So Captain America Civil War is going to open up on May 6th, 2016. The Spider-Man, the New Avenger, or whatever it ends up becoming called, which I really do like the New Avenger, is going to be opening up on July 28th, 2017. So if we do get more information about either of these topics, especially when we get the casting announcement for Spider-Man, I will definitely update you guys on here. Well, that'll do it for part 1 of today's episode of Coming Soon Movie News with Niklsun. Thank you so much for watching. You guys have been a great audience. Go ahead and click that subscribe button there in the bottom corner. You can get updates whenever we post a new video. You can also follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Niklsun, Niklsun, for all of your movie updates. And also give the Facebook fan page a like at facebook.com/movie news with Niklsun. If you ever have a question or topic you'd like to have talked about on the show, you can go ahead and put a comment in the comment section, or you can email me at movienewswithniklsun@gmail.com. And on every Friday episode, I'll try to get to as many as I can. But until next time, you guys enjoy the rest of your day. Take care.